We are counting down the top 10 Scotch whisky brands that every drinker should know, from mass-market icons anyone recognises to the cult favourites only true aficionados worship. Whether you crave smoky peat, rich sherry sweetness, or handcrafted tradition, each spot on this list earns its place for a reason. Which legendary name takes the #1 crown? Let us begin with number 10. Johnnie Walker is the global face of Scotch whisky, found everywhere from supermarket shelves to airport duty-free shops. Founded in 1820, the brand built its reputation on consistency, blending malt and grain whiskies from across Scotland. Its famous colour label system, launched in 1908, makes picking a bottle simple: red for mixing, black label for sipping, blue for those special occasions. Black Label, aged 12 years and bottled at 40% ABV, sets the standard for blended Scotch, smooth, reliable and approachable, and it is usually priced between $40 and $55. While it may not have the wild personality of a single malt, Johnnie Walker's blend is the benchmark for accessibility and a default gift for anyone unsure where to start. It is the whiskey you reach for when you need to please a crowd, not make a statement. Glenfiddich opened its doors in 1887, launching what would become the world's best-selling single malt Scotch. For millions of travellers, this is the first single malt they ever try. Often picked up from an airport shelf or gifted as a safe introduction to whiskey, Glenfiddich 12, bottled at 40% alcohol by volume, and typically priced around $40 to $50, greets the nose with bright green apple and pear, rounded out by soft vanilla and honey. Still family-owned, Glenfiddich claims about 10 to 12% of the global single malt market, a testament to its role as the approachable entry point. It's the bottle you reach for when you want to start exploring, not overwhelm your palate. Founded in 1843, Glenmorangie stands apart for its technical elegance. The distillery's copper pot stills stretch a remarkable 26 feet, the tallest in Scotland, producing a spirit so light and delicate, it is often compared to citrus blossom and vanilla cream. Glenmorangie did not just rely on tradition, it pioneered cask finishing, moving whiskey from ex-bourbon barrels into port, sherry, or sauternes casks for a final flourish of flavour. The result is a portfolio that feels refined and inventive, with the original 10-year-old offering bright citrus, soft vanilla, and a silky finish. Bottled at 40% alcohol by volume, and typically retailing for $40 to $48, Glenmorangie remains the go-to for those who appreciate subtlety and innovation in every sip. Laphroaig doesn't just flirt with peat, it dives straight in, head first. Founded on Islay in 1815, this distillery has built its legend on a flavour profile that is anything but shy. The signature Laphroaig 10-year-old, bottled at 40% alcohol by volume, and usually priced around $45 to $55, is famous for tasting like a campfire in a hospital, with iodine, seaweed, and thick clouds of medicinal smoke. Every drop owes its punch to on-site peat, fueling the kilns and pushing phenol levels into the heavy range. For many, Laphroaig is a rite of passage. You either love it or you never want to taste it again. But for those who crave boldness, Laphroaig 10 is the bottle that dares you to cross the smoky threshold. Highland Park stands alone on the Orkney Islands, founded in 1798 and shaped by windswept cliffs and Norse legend. Its 12-year-old expression, bottled at 43% alcohol by volume, and usually found for about $45 to $55, is a masterclass in balance. Gentle peat smoke, around 20 to 25 parts per million, mingles with sweet heather honey, a nod to the island's wild landscape. The result is neither too smoky nor too sweet, but perfectly in between. Highland Park's Viking soul branding is not just for show. It reflects a whiskey with enough character to satisfy peat fans and enough softness to welcome newcomers. For anyone searching for a Goldilocks dram, Highland Park 12 is the answer. The Balvenie stands apart for doing things the old way, even as most of the industry moved on. Since 1887, this Speyside distillery has grown its own barley, malted by hand on one of Scotland's last traditional floor maltings. Barley is spread across stone floors, turned with wooden shovels and dried over a peat fire, a method that has almost vanished everywhere else. In-house coopers build and repair every cask, ensuring each barrel is just right before whiskey ever touches wood. The flagship Doublewood 12, matured first in ex-bourbon barrels and then finished in sherry casks, brings together honey, vanilla, gentle spice, and a touch of dried fruit. Bottled at 43% alcohol by volume and usually found for $55 to $65, Doublewood 12 offers richness and depth without the flash of collector hype. The Balvenie is quiet luxury, a whiskey for those who admire craft over status and flavour over fame. Macallan isn't just a whiskey, it is a luxury commodity, the kind of bottle that turns up at auctions with price tags that rival vintage sports cars. Founded in 1824, Macallan built its reputation on an obsession with Spanish sherry oak casks from Jerez. These casks are not cheap, and neither is the whiskey they produce. The Macallan Sherry Oak 12, bottled at 43% alcohol by volume, pours a deep amber and delivers a rush of dried fruits, rich cake and warm spice. Expect to pay $90 to $120 for a bottle, sometimes more depending on collector demand. That status tax is real. You are paying for prestige as much as flavour. Yet for many, Macallan is the Rolex or Ferrari of Scotch. If you want to taste what all the fuss is about, the Sherry Oak 12 is the classic starting point, opulent, polished, and unmistakably designed to impress. Waves crash against black sky rock as Talisker's copper stills work just yards from the sea. Founded in 1830, Talisker is the island's original whiskey, and still its most famous, shaped by storms and salt spray. The 10-year-old is bottled at a punchy 45.8% alcohol by volume, and it is usually found for $45 to $55. It tastes like a walk along a windswept beach, sea salt on your lips, a whiff of brine in the air, and that unmistakable hit of cracked black pepper. The spicy kick comes from Talisker's unique still design, with line arms that rise sharply, coaxing out a bold, peppery spirit. Peated to around 18 to 20 parts per million, Talisker is not as smoky as Islay malts, but it is far from gentle. Think bonfire embers and a touch of honeyed sweetness in the finish. For many, this is the whiskey that proves maritime terroir is not just a story, it is a taste you cannot mistake for anything else. Lagavulin doesn't rush anything. Founded in 1816 on Islay, this distillery has built a reputation for patience and depth. The 16-year-old is the standard bearer, and it wears its age well. 16 years in ex-bourbon casks lets the peat smoke mellow and intertwine with new layers, campfire ash, dried figs, a hint of sea salt drifting in from the coast. At 43% alcohol by volume, and usually found for $80 to $100, Lagavulin 16 is not a casual buy, it is a commitment. The peat here is not brash or medicinal, it is slow burning, contemplative, and woven deep into the whiskey's core. Phenol levels hover around 30 to 35 parts per million, striking a balance between intensity and maturity. This is the bottle serious drinkers keep for quiet nights and big thoughts. For many, it is the ultimate cult classic, helped along by Ron Swanson's televised devotion. If you want to understand why Islay commands such loyalty, Lagavulin 16 is where the conversation gets real. Ardbeg is not just a whiskey, it's a phenomenon. Founded on Islay in 1815, Ardbeg spent more than a century building a reputation for uncompromising peat. By the 1980s, the distillery nearly vanished, mothballed and silent as the world's taste for smoky whiskey faded. Then came the rescue in 1997, when Glenmorangie swept in, revived the stills, and brought Ardbeg roaring back to life. What emerged wasn't just a return to form, it was a new benchmark for peat lovers everywhere. Ardbeg. 10-year-old is the main event, bottled at 46% alcohol by volume, selling for around $50 to $70, and packing a punch with 50 to 55 parts per million of peat phenols. That is the highest you'll find in any mainstream Scotch. Yet what sets Ardbeg apart is not just the smoke. Beneath the bonfire, there is a burst of lemon-lime citrus, a flash of honeyed sweetness, and a clean mineral finish that keeps you coming back. This wild balance has earned Ardbeg a string of accolades, including multiple World Whisky of the Year awards, and most recently, top Islay honours at the 2025 World Whiskies Awards. But Ardbeg's real secret weapon is its community. The Ardbeg Committee, a worldwide fan club with tens of thousands of members, turns every limited release into an instant event. Bottles like Uigeadail, which layer sherry cask richness onto the peat, have achieved cult status. For those who want to taste the legend, start with Ardbeg 10-year-old, then chase down Uigeadail for the full experience. This is the rock star of Scotch, loud, complex, and impossible to ignore. In the world of smoky whiskey, Ardbeg wears the crown, and the fans would not have it any other way. Across all 10 Scotch titans, one pattern stands out. Greatness is not about tradition or innovation alone, it is about personality. Each brand distills its own bold character, and that keeps Scotch relevant. In whiskey, there is no single best, just the dram that speaks to you. Which one calls your name?